Hi guys, welcome back to this lesson 6. Today I have a very few things specific in mind so that I want to improve our app, and basically we're going to start on the events page. If you remember, we have a dashboard. If you go to the events, you will be able to create a new event. However, you don't have any kind of feedback from the creation. So what I want to do is add after this form like all the events from this user, so that you can click on the events, see the events that you created as a user, edit the events, delete the events. And also I want to improve a few things inside the app, right, before we go into the dashboard. So perhaps one of the things that I want to improve is the error message. So this one is fine, at least we have a feedback. But if you go to the login page, right, if you go to the login page and like you don't have any feedback or whatsoever what's going on, so I think we need to give some love to this page. Also, I want to transfer that to the login page because this is the login, and then after you log in, this is actually will be the dashboard page, if that makes any sense. So that's the goal for this app. I will try straight away to record 2 episodes so that I can release 2 videos. One will be basically improving everything that we have. I will add the image. We're going to do a little bit of CSS, and we're going to fix those messages and the endpoints. And then the second one will be adding the dashboard and finishing the front-end app, right? So let's get this done. Cool. So the first thing first, if you go to the code, right, this is inside the events page. We will start removing this console log that we left behind. I will save that. I'm happy so far with this. We're going to componentize this in a second. So the first thing I want to do now is go to the routes, and then inside the routes, basically the dashboard, I will be moving that to the toppest one, and the dashboard will be this. The login will be the login page. And basically, when we protect the route, we're going to add some logic there that if you're not logged in, it will reroute you to the login page. So we're going to do that in the following video, right? That's not going to be done now. So now that we amend that, what we can do, we can go to the login page and start. We can go to the login page and start to fix that there. So basically, if you remember, we can use pretty much what we did in the events page as a strategy, right? So we can create a component that basically will be an error message and pass an error message inside of a hard-coded message, instead of a hard-coded message, I mean. So I copied that entire thing, error message, alert, and I'll come back here. So then after the form, we're going to paste that here, and we're going to create the error message, right? So const error message and set error message, and this will be boolean, right? Use state. This will be false as a default. I think it makes more sense to be error and set error, right? And then the error message be actually the message. I think you guys will probably agree with that. So if you do that, this will be string, and that will be message. And I will show you why, because here we can have different errors coming from the backend. So I think I've changed at some point this to 82, because like you don't want to have 2 H1s in the same page. This is not advised to do. I'm not sure if you guys do the same. So basically what we can do here inside the handle submit, we basically can do the following thing, right? we can start wrapping this and trying to catch, because if something goes wrong, we want to add a different error. And then this entire message I will paste inside the try, right? That's what we want. If we have an error here, right? So that's the thing. Let's just start from the actual validation errors initially. So if you have an error here, what you want to do, as you can see, we are consoling out this message already, but what we want to do is basically set a timeout. This is a function again. We're going to return a function that will have a 200 milliseconds. This is 2000 milliseconds. This is 2 seconds. And basically what we want to do is, outside from this scope, we will do set an error true, because we want that to appear. We want set error message to message, and then inside the timeout we will set the error false, and we need to reset the message, right? Because the next message could be different. So you want to make sure that you do set error message to an empty string. Basically, if you just by doing that, what you basically what you learn, we need to import alert. So basically by doing that, if you go now to the logging page, hello from dashboard is sending me to dashboard because I'm logged in already. Basically it's the exact that we're missing, right? So okay, so basically we have been missing an exact path here. So of course this is where matching all the time the logging page, because all of them starts with dash. So as soon as you put exact there, you fix the issue. So now if you're missing requirement, you have this friendly message. Basically what we want to do as well, if you come to the logging page, we could have a form group wrapping the button as well. This will give us some margin and padding that we need. Some margin, I think. We can add a bit of love to this page, doing few things. So I guess let's do some CSS here. Try to improve this, right? So in the app CSS, I will add some styles. So the app is like the entire app, right? So that means if I want to style global things that is specific, like it's going to affect like margin, paddings, positioning, I will try to add to app CSS. If I'm doing something that is just the login page, I will do inside the login. If I do something to the event, this means just to the event. So that's basically what we're doing here. So inside, what you want to do will be inside the app CSS, we want to import some fonts, right? So there's a thing pretty cool that at least I find pretty cool, that is the Google Fonts. So if you go to the Google Fonts, you can pick up some fonts and use that. So I like to use on my projects a font that is called Roboto, and I think this looks great, is quite nice. So I'm gonna pick up this font, and you can pick up I like to use the 400 and the 700. Well, just the href link, okay? Or you can use the import one. That basically this will be the entire tag that we need. So this will be very helpful. So you copy that and you can close this. So if you go to the app, let's paste that on top. So now we're going to have a font. Let's make sure that app is important in the CSS. It is. So that sounds Good. So now we can start writing our CSS. So the first thing I will write a few things global, right? So we'll add margin 0. I will do like some reset stuff, padding 0. I will add outline 0 as well. We don't want the outline. And the box sizing, I will do a border box. I think it makes things to look much better. Then what we can do is do the HTML, the body, and also the root. If you know how React works, we are adding some stuff to the root. So I want to do the min height to be 100%, right? And then the following thing that we want is to do body background. So this background will be basically the image that we're going to set and save, right? So what I want to do is like you can use RGBA, and then you can pass like just a fade effect. So I will do, I think 0.500, that sounds good enough for me. Then you can do an URL, and this will be basically an asset, and inside the asset we're going to have a background, and this background will be the image that we're going to add there now. Like you can see we have an error because we don't have the image yet. So I'll be copying the image now. So I'll be adding the asset there, and I'll be renaming it from to just background. This image is free, I got from Google, and we had the right to modify or do whatever we decide with this image. This image, you can go straight away to the description of this video. You will find a link to my GitHub, and inside the GitHub just go to the lesson 5, and inside lesson 5 you'll find the front-end and back-end folder. You go to the front-end folder, the assets folder, and you can copy the image directly from the repo. You can download from there, right? So now that I have this, let's see how the app is looking like. So we having our image already, so that's good. This is starting to work. So basically what we need to add now is a non-repeat property as well. So if you come back to the CSS, what we can do now is do a background size. And the background size we want to be cover. And the repeat property we can pass here as a no repeat, right? So this will do that for us in the app, right? So now another thing that we want to do, we can use a WebKit to help us to smoothly the image a little bit more. So the next thing that we want to do is basically add body, input, and also the buttons. So we will change the font family. So the font family now will be basically what we have on top here that we downloaded. So be Roboto. And if you don't have that in the browser, then you can use Arial. Arial American Sans Serif. That's good. And then the font size, the default font size, will be 14 pixels. So that changed a little bit the font. And then we can work a little bit on the container. The container will be basically where we're going to set the margins. This will be 8 pixels and outer for the height. And we will have a max width of 450 pixel. We will have a width of 100%. We will have a display flex because we want to make it flex, and we want a flex direction to be a column. So this is our positioning, and we want to align items to the center, right? See, it's starting to come out much better. So now the login page, we're going to change the color here, right? But we're going to do that later on. So now I think, well, let's do in H1, right? Because then all the H1s will be, yeah, that makes sense. So if you come back here, because it's an element, so inside the well, let's do the, I think is scoped. I think it will make much more sense. So container H1. So if you have an H1 inside the container, we want to change the color, and this color could be any color that you actually prefer. I will add a red color, F0, 5A, 5B. This is a nice red color there for our title. And then the font size I think could be a little bit higher. Let's put at 36 pixel. So the next thing that we will do, we're going to go to the app, and we have a route here, and this route we're going to wrap it into a div, and this div basically will be so that we can style everything. So we want to add a class name here, and this will be basically the content of our app, right? So all the content will be inside. So now that we have a class name, we can come back to the app and we can create a content class. And this content class basically will be used so that we can style everything inside. We can start doing like some width and opacity and background and change a few things so that we can have a little bit much nicer effect. So the width is going to be 80%. The opacity will be 0.9. The background will be a white one. So the background we want to have, you can do basically an FFF, right? Then we want a margin top to be 50 pixels, a border radius to be, I would say 4 pixels looks fine, and a padding of a 30 pixel to wrap up everything. See, so now we're starting to have the feeling and the look of our app. I think maybe the opacity could be a little bit higher. We can let's have a look here how that feels. If we change that, let's try to 8, maybe 7, 8. I think it's looking much better. So yeah, let's change the opacity to 8 instead. Okay, the next thing that we want to do is to address the piece that we're going to have. So it's basically all the p tags that we have. So we're going to do a content targets the piece, the paragraph. This will be a font size 22 pixel. We also will have a line height of 30 pixel and a margin bottom of 30 pixel as well. Another thing that we can do is the content, the buttons, right? So the buttons is a thing we will have a class that we can append that will be basically a submit button. This is a kind of an override thing. So we want the border to be 0. We want the border radius to be 2 pixels, and we want the width to be 100%, and we want the height to be 42 pixels. The height, actually the height I did already. So the font, the padding, we can have some nice padding around, right? So that will be nice padding. So it could be 0.20 pixels. I will see if I need to adjust that. Font size, let's have 16 pixels. Font weight, here we change because the font family, so we want bold. Bold means like we have the 700 here, so you could say font weight 700. That also works. And the background, we want basically to add the same color that we have here. I didn't want to use Sass or install or make this more complex because, like, since the beginning I'm saying my focus is not the CSS. Maybe we can have a series doing Sass and other things and importing variables, creating variables, doing some nice and fancy mixings, but that's not the point that I want to do now. So the color of the text will be white as well. And let's change the cursor to a pointer. This will bring us a little bit much nicer buttons. And when you do a hover, right, we want to change a little bit. So if you do that and they state hover, you can overwrite the colors and things, right? So the background I want to change for a red that is a little bit light there. So what I want here will be E14 and F50. Yeah, that will be a little bit lighter, and opacity 1, right? So let's see, we need to add the class in our button now. So basically will be a submit button, right? So if you go in the login page, we have button that is submit, class name, submit button. There you have it. I think what we could do as well, of course, is adding a little bit of padding, a margin top from this. And let me see why this is. Oh, also I just reminded now that basically there's a thing that we want to do as well that we almost forget. If you go to the login page, but you don't have an account, you want to create one. So basically what we want to do is have another form here, and this form basically will have a different class, and the secondary button, we're going to style that as well. So this will be what we call a secondary button, right? And what we want to do is add a function here. So on click, we want to do basically what we're doing, we send the user to the other place. So you can have a function call directly in the line, use the history .push that we use on top, and in this case send to the register, right? And this will be new account. So now you would have a new account there, and the new account, we want to style this button. So let's have a look how we can do that. Let's add a little bit of styling this. We can fix the order at some point. So one will be the submit button and the submit button hover, and then we can have a content will be a button and will be dot secondary button, right? So the secondary button, we want to be blue or something like that. So we can do margin top, let's put 12 pixel. We want to align border 0, border radius 2 pixels. I think we kind of can copy this, right? Let's just change the color, it will be much quicker and easier. So the color instead we can change for a blue, be 33 7A. I'm just looking here in the left on my other monitor, B7. Hey, good. And now of course we want to do the opacity as well, so we can copy this, will be secondary button, just to gain on speeds of doing that. And this is basically will be a 28, 60, 90. Yeah, the buttons are looking good now. I will fix this form at some point, but like honestly I'm not too bothered right now. The only thing I want to see, so I have a button, this div has a merge button, this div has a merge button, and this thing doesn't have a merge button. So the merge button that we have is one rem. So what we can do, we can, I think the best way for us fixing that will be for the form. It's actually not a form, is it? We could have a form group that wraps that. Yeah, I think so. So let's try this strategy. So if we have a form group that wraps the entire thing, oops, I'm changing the wrong page. So I'll cancel that for now. So if you go into in the index logging, we can see that we have form and we have a button inside the form. But what we want to do, we want to create a group apart from the buttons, right? Because the buttons, we want to make these a group so that we can add the same distance from the buttons there. So what I'm going to do, I'll create a form group, and this form group will have a class name and will be basically a form group. And what we want to do, it will be, let's see the distance of the buttons. So the buttons have so the form group has like a margin button 1 rem, right? So if the form group has that, maybe I don't even need this class name. So why does this doesn't get applied there if this has a 5 rem margin, right? I see, motherfucker. This has been overwritten so that the forms get together, and that's cool. But the buttons, we don't want the buttons to get together. This is basically because the styling I'm doing there. basically because of that, right? Cool. I see. So what are we going to do here will be a little bit different. We want to create inside the forms. Let's create a div that has a meaning for us. It will be a class name. This will be a form. We're going to call this input group. And basically what we want to do with that is on top of the buttons, we want to wrap everything in a group. And then now we can look for that. That's cool. We're going to fix that. You shouldn't be worried about that. So inside the group, basically what we want to do, it will be going to the content. We will have a content div.input group. If you do a display here, flex, and you do a flex direction row, column, you have the same effect you had previously. And then what you can do now is add a margin button of 1 rem. And now you have it. You have the same distance between the elements that you had before. And let me just check what the margin, what is making this thing weirdly lose is padding. So if you look at the box here, you can see there's a margin below. That's fine. I did that. So inside the input group, I do margin minus 8 pixel, padding minus 8 pixel. Okay, let's move. I'm happy with that. Let's move. Okay, guys. So now you see we have at least the padding and the distance and the margin is all working. So if you logged in with the lesson 5, this is the password is test. Now you go to the dashboard. If you come back here and you don't have like any password, missing required information, right? So I'm happy with that. This is just an idea. You can of course style your app in a different way or like find a better way. The sports app on top actually should have like a logo or something, but we don't. So we're going to carry on without the logo anyway. If you go now to the register page, we need to make sure that the register page has the same classes so that it works the style here as well, right? So basically we need to look for the submit button and the secondary button in the register page. So this is the next thing that we're going to fix now. So if you go here, there you have a button. So we want to add a class name of submit button. This is will make it look like the way we want. And we're going to create a div. And basically we're going to use the input group name like we did before. Let me format that. Okay. So this will be a class name of input group. This will be wrapping until a button. So it will wrap here. We will have the same effect, and that's cool. And now what we can do is basically copy the same button that we have in the login page. So if you go to the login index, what we want to do here will be copy this entire button. Here we're using form groups. We will need to use those there as well. And if you come back here, what we want to do now is have the button there, and this button actually will be a login, and you can say here something like login stat or something like that. And for us now, we're basically missing the form group here. The form group here. Here will be a form group. And here will be a form group as well. Coolio. So now we have a register page with the same style, same thing. Uh-oh. Our register page has some... Oh, it doesn't have any kind of thing validation here, right? So let's add that crap validation back that we had. So basically what we can do here, this is like a bit crap, but so we want to check if all this information is filled, right? So that's basically what we want to do. So what you can do, let's use the same strategy. So if you go to the login, let's copy this component, right? Come back to the root, sorry, to the register. After the form inside the container, we want to add the error. So now we want to define an error and a set error. This will be equals to a use state, and this one is boolean, so it will be false. The other one will be set, it will be error message and set error message. This will be like a user state and a string, right? Now that we have a few things here, we can do a check for basically to see if these fields, like we don't want an empty string. We're going to start with that, but we can improve that in other episode. So basically what we want to do is check if the email is different from empty string, because we are setting the default value of empty string, and the password is also different than empty string, and first name, I don't know why I'm adding comma, is also different from empty string. I don't know, I have comma in my mind today. And last name, same thing, different from empty string. So if that is true, you want to do the things, right? So the user ID that we are checking is to, I'm trying to see what we're doing here. Okay, so we get a response, we grab all that things, and we create a new user. And then from the response, when you create the user, if you have the user, you log the user in, right? But basically, if we don't have that, you want to return, right? So you can add this entire thing here, and that should be alright. And in the else, you would have errors as well. So basically, you would have this scenario here. However, it won't be from the response, and we're going to create that. So what we can do now, we can, in this case here, let's copy from the login, because why not? This will be helpful for us. This is the same code that we need. So if we go back to register, this means you have valid stuff in there, so it's not empty. So then we send the response to the server. The server has responded to us fine. With 200, we now have a user ID. So if you have a user ID, you want to log in the user, otherwise false. If you log in the user, success. You push the user to the dashboard. Otherwise, you want to set the error true. You set the error message to the message that will come back from the server, and in 2 seconds you clean everything up so that you can carry on. However, if this validation fails, that means we have missing requirements. The message will be a manual message, so you can say you need to fill all the inputs, something like that. We need to import alert, and the error message will be passed in here, right? That's why I love React so much. So now you need to fill all the inputs. This is a big crap message, but you get the idea. You can definitely improve on that. Okay, but now if you have all the things, so test episode 6 test.com, password test, and submit, you go to the dashboard page because you managed to log in. You register a new user, and because we're not checking the email, basically you're just sending the user to the dashboard. What you could do in the backend, if you want, is instead to log in the user straight away, is send him an email, but that's a super complicated thing to do, and he needs to click in the mail, validate that so that he can log in himself, right? Or you can redirect the user to the login page and force him to type the password that he just created. So I prefer in this case just to send the user to the dashboard. So now we have some error validations here, like at least minimal validation, so just so that you have an idea how does that work. And if we come back to the events, I think events, oh gosh, so we need to fix that because like it's a big crap now. And basically, let me see how the image is reacting to that. Gratefully, love that. So basically now what we want to do is create a place down here inside this main thing where we're going to list because when you go to the create event, imagine, right, that in the dashboard we're going to have a link for you to create your own event. So as you logged in already, we know the user ID, and basically what we're going to do is use the user ID to fetch all the things that you have created already, so that we can show you, and if you decided to change something, you can edit this information, right? So that's the main thing I want to do now. So let's work for do that. Okay, so let's move, guys. Let's go to the event page again. So inside the events page, there's a few things that we want to fix, right? So the first one is having a form group in the button, because we want to keep the same distance between the things in the other page. So we want to make sure this is consistent. Okay, and then we know that we want to have a different page here, different button already. Basically, we're going to apply the same style, so be a secondary button and secondary button and the main button, submit button. So if we come back here, will be secondary button, will be return, I think just dashboard or cancel, right? No, dashboard for now. This will be create the event. This will be canceling the event. I must say I'm a bit confused. Okay, so this will be the submit button. Okay, I'm gonna copy all the logic from the buttons again, and this is basically will be from the register page. So if you have an unclick there, we can come back to the events page, and this will be the secondary button on change, and this will be back to the dashboard. So the history we need to import on top of our component. So the events page needs to destructure history. That basically will fix that. Yeah. So if you come back, the styles here is not being applied because let's add these there. We know we're going to need that. So inside the forms, we want to add a div that will be the entire group apart from the buttons. So we want to close the div here. Yeah, it's looking good. The only thing, we have a container, a content. Let's see if I can find out why this is not working. So if you go in app CSS, we need to understand that we need to have a content / button to make that work. So we have a content. Why this is so weirdly? Oh, it's just a typo. I can't believe that. Of course, it's not a type. This is a class name, guys. Sorry. Cool. So now that we fixed the style, this is looking decent to me. I'm thinking, right? I think if you have a created event and a list event separated, it probably will make more sense for this app. Otherwise, it will be like too complicated for the front end, I mean. So let's try to create another event first of all. So if you have here this episode and you want to call hiking, don't know, cycling. This will be 10k cycling on Sunday. This will be cycling on Sunday so that we can test. The price will be £39 and the event will be the 31st of May of 2020. If I submit that, we have a 200, right? I think we could add something here that tells you that you have an event created. That will be helpful here, definitely would. So basically we can use kind of this system that we have in place, but instead to be an error. So first thing first, let's fix this thing here. Let's change, if you press F2, this is no longer the error message, this is the error, and this is the set error, right? So what we can do, the same way you have color danger, you have other colors. So what we can do something similar like this, but instead of error, call like success, and basically that will allow us to do the following, right? So let's create here const success set success, and this is will be use state and will be false. If that returns true, this is will show up. Let's figure out the color, right? So if you go to the React strap forms, if you go to alerts, the success is the secondary alert. Yeah, so let's change this color, and here we basically want to say the event was created successfully. So now what we can do, we can basically say, if you look here in the console, let's create an event just to make sure this is working as we think it is. Price 33, you can pick up any day. Event has been saved. Yeah, so that works. So we're going to clean this up a little bit. We don't need all these things, but what we want to set the success true. So basically, pay attention now. I'm going to do the following. I'll be copying this. I'll be removing this console log. But here, instead of setting the error, we want to set the success to false. And before that, we want to set success true. So this is like an easy and hacky way to have at least a feedback, right? Because like you wouldn't know what did happen, right? So you pick up something. Let's add this picture. You put there running 5K, doesn't matter, the price will be different, the day will be different, the event was created successfully. It seems that the color kind of didn't work for us, did it? So it's the third one. Oh, it's success. Yeah, so that was me missing reading, sorry guys. So yeah, if you go back there and you change that to success, basically now we have an app looking much better. This is looking much better. We fixed the event, we fixed the login, we fixed the register, all with minimal validation, but we do have some validation now. Maybe we can, let me see. I'm just thinking that these labels is making look much nicer. I don't know. Well, leave me a comment below if you want me to add labels or not. Let's figure out this together. This video is about an hour already, So like I did mention, we fix a few things in the app. I'm happy with that. So I'll be closing this episode here. In the next episode, we're going to be doing the dashboard. That will be one of the last things that we will do. And since that the dashboard will be showing up all the events, we will be creating filters. We will be doing a few things there. It will be very interesting. So please remember to subscribe to this channel if you didn't yet, and like to leave your like, support this series, and I see you in the next video.